Architectural drivers are the key factors that influence and shape the design of a software system. These drivers are typically determined by the specific requirements and constraints of the system, and they help to guide the decisions that are made throughout the development process. So, in simple words, we can say that the what and why kind of questions related to software architecture are called the architectural drivers. These drivers include a design purpose or quality attributes, primary functionality, architectural concerns, and constraints. These considerations are critical to the success of the system. As such, they drive and shape the architecture, and as with other requirements, the architectural drivers need to be baselined and managed throughout the development lifecycle. So, what are the important architectural drivers? Let's see. We should know about the functional requirements. In order to design the software, you need to know something about the goals that it needs to satisfy. Well, this sounds obvious because it is obvious and it's a first step in the process. The functional requirements of the system define what the system must do in order to fulfill its intended purpose. These requirements can be used to determine the overall structure of the system, including the number and type of components, interfaces, and relationships. Then we must know about the quality attributes, the non functional requirements that specify how well the system must perform in certain areas. These attributes can include performance, reliability, security, usability, and scalability, among others. The choice of architecture will depend on which of these attributes are most important for the system. These requirements are mostly technical in nature and can have a huge influence over the resulting architecture, particularly if you are building high performance systems. Next, we must know about the constraints as well. Software architecture live in a real world, and real world has constraints. Constraints are the limitations that must be taken into account when designing the system. These constraints can include technical limitations like the choice of the programming language or platform, as well as organizational or business constraint like budget or time constraint. Then we must have an idea about the external dependencies. So, external dependencies, as clear from the word, are the external systems or components that software system must interact with. These dependencies can have a significant impact on the design of the system as they will determine the types of interfaces that must be used and the way in which the data is exchanged. And finally, we can say the future growth can be a key architectural driver too. The design of the system should also take into account the expected future growth of the system. The architecture should be flexible enough to accommodate future changes or additions without requiring significant rework or redesign. Software architecture is about the significant design decisions, where significance is often measured by the cost of change. So, a high level understanding of architectural driver can help us to make informed decisions about the design of the software system and help us to create a system that meets the specific requirements and constraints of the project. And most importantly, understanding these drivers early in the project will help us to avoid the costly rework in the future.